Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Cheryl from Tinker's Cart Art this morning, and I'm here in my Tinker's Cart Art group, but it's my segment on Craft Round the Clock. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for popping in. I see you guys coming in. We're going to paint a fun little seascape this morning. So I invite you to say hello. I am coming through you through StreamYard this morning, which gives me the dual screen so that you can get a close-up of what I'm painting. So you may be asked to give StreamYard permission to see your profile. That way I know your name, but you don't have to. If you just say hello, I will see your comments as we go. So I came to you last week, remember, from Massachusetts. You guys might know I'm in the middle of a move right now from Lakeland, Florida, where I was the week before, and now I am up on the coast of Maine. And it's kind of a hectic time, as anybody who's been moving knows. Like, where are my supplies? Where are my things? Which places do I have paint? So I have just my heavy body acrylics here this morning, which I found out. So I'm going to use those and paint a little ocean, a quick little ocean scene. This is acrylic paint. And this is just a little view we have of the ocean, the Maine, up in Maine and the Atlantic, and the beautiful deep blue, green kind of ocean, cold water, of course, a lot of very rocky coast. So I'm going to quickly just show you a little bit about how I created this painting. So good morning. Let me see. I'll pull your comments up. Oh, there you guys are. Hey, Sherry, thank you so much. And Diana, I know you're from Connecticut. I am good. Thank you. It's very hectic right now, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me. Hey, Amy, good morning. Sonia, everybody. I love the Craft Around the Clock site page. I hope you are following it. I have the link in the description. Every 45 minutes, there are new crafters and so much inspiration. Even if you can't sit and watch and work alongside, just put it on. It's nice to have that little artistic and creative community going in the background. It's just a fabulous place. Oh, Cheryl, thank you from California. First time watching. Welcome. Sharon, welcome. Thank you, guys. I love hearing where you're from in Maryland. Joyce. Oh, hey, Joyce. Yep, I'm glad you guys popped in. I'm flying off the cuff this morning, but I usually do when I'm doing these segments. I had a big gourd here I was going to paint, and I thought, well, the ocean's right here. It feels like we're getting into that season, so let's do some water. But I do appreciate you guys popping in what you might want to see me paint. I'm happy to do almost anything. And it's always very random what I'm painting on. Today I'm going to just take, because I have it here, a little square canvas, and I love the little chunky canvases. I painted this originally on a little chunky canvas, which is nice because you don't need to frame it. You could hang it on the wall, you could set it on a shelf, and I'm just using simply my acrylic paints. Like I said, I'm using my heavy body acrylics today. You could do this with a craft paint. My job is to try to get you guys to paint and not be fearful and just make time and jump in with simple supplies. You don't need a lot to get started. Hey, Cindy from Webster, my neighbor at home. I'm heading home after this segment, so I'll be back in Central Mass, and Cindy lives not too far from me in Central Mass. So I am going to be moving from Massachusetts to Winter's place in Lakeland, Florida, and I know some of you guys are close to me down there. And then right now I have a little camper here in Wells, Maine. You might see a little bit behind me there. So, Diana, you are correct, because you know it's kind of funny. I wish I had picture handy, but even at my camp here, last summer I redid the sign. They have a big wooden carved sign out front, and I think I even have a little video of myself up there. That one requires scaffolding, and I don't know. I've done it twice, and I don't know, as the older I get, I don't really want to be way up there in that high. But I do a lot of the signs. I did the sign for the condos next to me, and then there's a sign across the street that needs doing. And so, yeah, if it doesn't move, I will paint it. So anyways, let's jump in, and I'll give you an idea how quick and easy. This took, of course, a little longer than the 45 minutes, but I'm going to basically show you how I get started and how easy things can be. I don't know if I have my palette knives here. I do. I'm going to grab one because I like to do the skies and the rocks sometimes with the palette knife. So let me grab that. Setting up a studio in 2 locations has been very interesting. So I have some, actually they're just plastic. I think I bought a pack of them for a class, and they'll work. They don't have to be a fancy tool. I'm going to use some of my hog bristle brushes this morning. Those are the long-handled. You find them with the fine art section. And I like on canvas a lot of times for some of them, especially landscapes and things, because the bristles are hog bristles, so they're stiff. They're not as soft as my nice synthetic brushes, which I'll use both. But to get the background on, I like to use a heavier brush that digs right into the bristles. So yeah, Diana, the palette knives are a blast. You can do whole paintings. I'm working on a painting now that's a big 36 by 24 that's strictly just palette knife. One of my fellow plein air painters works just in a palette knife, and I'm just love to do that sometimes. It's really playful, really fun. Don't have to plan a lot. You get a little sketch. It's really kind of fun to play with for texture too. So I didn't even draw anything on here this morning. So I'm going to just give myself, because a pencil is not handy, and I'm going to just give myself a little line maybe for the sky. And you never want to divide your canvas right in half. You wouldn't want to make your horizon line right in half. Go up higher or up lower a little bit. Good morning, Lisa Marie. Thank you guys for all watching. I love it. Love to see you all here. I can see where the different platforms that you are looking at me from too, which is really fun. And let me know. I know a lot of times I'll go on with just my camera straight on, but it's hard sometimes to see exactly what I'm painting. So I do like to use the StreamYard platform too, so that you can really see up close. And because I still can see you, I feel like I can see you. But anyway, so all I'm going to really need on this one is a sky in the water section, and then I can throw rocks in here. But let me show you how simple a sky can be to paint. And I'm just going to use these hog bristle brushes, like I said. I've just squeezed out some color here. You can see how heavy the heavy body paint is compared to the craft paint, which is nice when you're doing texture or using a palette knife. It's nice to have that heavier bodied paint, but I want you just to use whatever you have. I paint the sky the same way pretty much, whether I'm using those paints or these. I take a little tiny bit of blue on my brush and go right into my white. I'm going to add a little water here because it's pretty thick. And I just get a blue shade that I like, and I jump right in and I start painting. This particular one, I went really teal towards the sky. So if I want to copy that and make it a little bit more like those colors, I think I'll grab a little teal. And I'm going to just start right in. I'm not going to worry too much about where my clouds are going to go yet. And I'm not going to do it, but you could very well do your edges of your canvas first, because then it gives you an idea of what the color looks like. So sometimes I do that to see, what does that blue look like? And I would just take some white and lighten it if I wanted, or blue and deepen it. But I don't want to take the time. You could paint those as you go. I like to work from one end of my sky to the other so that I'm working wet and wet, because I love to paint in oil paints because I have all that time to blend. I can't do that in acrylics because they're drying so quick. I try to emulate it by moving quickly across the canvas. While the paint's wet, I can work in lights and darks as I go. There are also mediums you could try to mix in with your paints that are slow drying. So, Diana, you know what? I think I will. So I do love those suggestions. Throw them out there. And if I don't do it, remind me. I try to make notes as I go here. But yeah, we should do that would be a fun demo with palette knives. I'll keep that in mind. In Madrid, oh, Ana Maria, you do pop in, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Today I'm going to just do a little acrylic seascape, since I'm on the ocean here right now this morning. But even if you're just doing another type of landscape painting, you can get ideas for how to paint the sky and just use all those different elements sometimes. So I'm going to, like I said, start on my left and work over. I'm going to use little kind of textured crisscrossy strokes I kind of use. You might have seen me do this before on landscapes. And as I go, I might pick up some whites because, okay, maybe I want to start a little cloud someplace. It's going to be a very bluey white. It's going to just be the dirty brush with blue, picking up some white, and it sort of starts a cloud. I don't want to paint a blue sky and then go paste a white cloud on top, because it'll look exactly like that. It'll look like it's pasted on. So I would rather start really subtly, just this subtle light, and build that up as I go and as the paint dries into brighter clouds. So for now, I'm just sort of taking, like I said, some, I went into my green there because I'm talking and painting. Some blue and white, but I'm going to add that teal. I do like that, which the green would be okay because it would give me that teal color. So can you see these little crisscrossy strokes I'm using? And I do like the way the paint's thick and a little bit more to move, struggling to move it around with this brush, but I like the texture it gives me. And if I find that it gets a little bit, I'll put my water here. You can see I'm dipping into my water a little bit. Back and forth. I'm going to just go from here over. And as you go, you can take a little blue and make it a little darker in spaces if you want. Take a little bit of white and get it a little lighter. It's going to look more natural if you have just all the shades, not mixing up a pile of perfectly shade of blue on your palette and painting your sky. Do it on the fly. Mix as you go. And it's going to look a little more natural. I'm going to even get a little purple and some yellow into my clouds when I get to that point. But for now, I'm just taking, you can see how dirty my paint is here. I just scoop a little more of the white part onto my brush and go in here because I think I will put a cloud up here. But see how subtle and vague it is right now? It's just slightly lighter, very blue. If you look at the clouds, they're really grayish or blue-gray. They're never really a stark white. I save the really stark whites to when it's dry. I know this has got a glaze on it, but can you see at the end I pop in some really bright whites on top? So if I have them very white right now, I'm going to have nothing to highlight. So I want to keep it kind of a dirty, bluey white. It could be very gray if you wanted a moody, stormy sky. I tend to paint lighter and brighter and more whimsical. That's why I'm using all these brighter colors, but you could tone it down with some Payne's gray or black and get really a moody kind of a sky, which would be fun. Good morning, Nancy. Diana, clouds are hard when you think too much about them. Just really quickly as you go and say, oh, it doesn't even have to turn into a cloud. Just put a little bit of light there, and I'll show you on this sky how to work in a little bit into your clouds without worrying too much. Go very subtle, go very light, kind of quickly. Leave them, step back, look at them later, and you can always touch them up. But sometimes when you struggle with things, like I was just doing a little thing on Pinterest this morning, I put on about painting people. People, you're so afraid of like people, like I don't know my anatomy that well. I can't paint a perfect person. And so on a little scene like this, I throw people in by just simply using little shapes, a little blob for a head, a triangle like for the body, put a few legs and a little bathing suit. And from a distance, it's going to read as a person, and it adds such interest to your painting, and it draws your viewers in. It doesn't have to be a portrait. It could just be a few little dabs of paint and just leave it. Same with clouds, just a few little dabs and leave it. Hey, Eric, how are you guys? We'll be heading home shortly soon. And Nancy, good morning. So I'm going to just keep going across. You can see I'm sort of going from left to right. I know I jump around a little bit, but the heavy body paints do give me a little bit longer time to blend. And can you see how simple that is? I've been talking and not even really paying attention, but looking at this close, you might say, oh, that doesn't look right at all. That doesn't look like clouds. You're not looking, no one's looking at your painting that close. You've got to step back from it. I know when I'm painting here with you, I'm right here painting, but if I'm really painting, I'll be standing usually outdoors when I'm painting, and I step back, back and forth. Look at it from a distance. Don't judge it from right here. And now I'll just dry off my brush. I won't clean it in the water yet. I'm just going to dry off the extra blue paint. It'll still be a little bit of a dirty brush. And now I can even build up the clouds a little more. It's still a bit wet, so I'll put another layer of white on, and it's going to stand up a little more, but still not bright white, which is not what I'm looking for. Yes, Dolores, it does. Really natural looking. And the more of any elements that you paint that you really work yourself up and get tense and nervous and have the mindset that you can't do it, that's going to take over. Just sit down with your paints, throw them around, have fun, and you'll be shocked at what comes out. And if you don't like it and it doesn't come out right, then you've learned something. It's either a masterpiece or a learning experience. And so we all can learn new things. When I'm painting clouds, and I'm going to do it actually on the paper here to show you real quick, because I have a darker blue here. So I wouldn't be doing the cloud with the dark blue, but show you how I do it with this sort of a brush. I'll go on, and we're going to pretend this is just the dirty brush. And I know it's kind of formulated, but it works for my clouds. I sort of always go and start with little bit of a half of a bubble like that. And I'll do a littler one. And as I get to the sides, I just sort of fade it out a little bit. And then I'll do the same over here. I know it like it's a formula. They can be shorter and fatter and bigger and smaller, but I basically do the top of the cloud. I want to have more of not really a harsh edge, but a stronger edge here. And down here, it's sort of just feathering out just because that's the way the brush works. Or I dry my brush off and I feather out. I always feather out down here, fade it into the sky. And then what I do when I go back is I go ahead and I added a little, we're pretending this blue is white, and then I'll go back and add a little heavier in some places. Never on the bottom. I'm never wanting to have this sort of thing. Then it starts looking pasted on, but feather it out. So let me do it in the white, which is what I would actually do it in. Dirty brush, fresh white though. You can see it's not perfectly white. And I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to make the bubble here where I want that paint, that cloud to be. Another little bubble, another, and I sort of fade it out. Now you could use a smaller brush too if you wanted to. And I just do it same thing. Now that already is looking a little bit like a cloud, you know, but I don't have a solid bottom on it. And then I would go, you could put just one or two or whatever you want. This little painting I did an awful lot of little clouds on. And so I just go ahead and I kind of get that white just a little brighter. I can see where it is, but it's vague still. And then if you want, like I said, this one I had a lot of clouds. And since we want to practice clouds, let's do more clouds. That little bit of white was a very subtle light blue area I had put in when I was just painting the sky. As the paint dries, you're going to see the paint stand up more. And I love the texture of the canvas on a painting like this. I love to almost ride the paint up on top of the canvas and see the little grooves and the texture that you get. It just works for what you're painting. And then you could leave it like that. You could do, like I said, I had a lot of little cloud areas here. And that's how I would leave it just for a minute now. Let that dry a little bit. Hey, Lois from Vermont, welcome. And we're going to build it up a little more. You see, I'll add a little more white. And can you see the yellow little bits I have here? I don't want to put that on now because that's going to turn green because the yellow and mixing with the blue. So I put that yellow, whenever I do a little yellow in my clouds, kind of like say the sun's behind it and showing a little bit of sunshine. I do it when the white is dry, the paint is dry, so that it goes on top of the white and is yellow and not turning green because I'm mixing it and I'm trying to do it too quickly. Hey, Charlotte, good morning. Hey, Kit, good to see you here. So let's pop into the water real quick. We'll come back to the sky, but I'm going to pop into the water. This water had an awful lot of rocks in it. So I think I'll put the water in and kind of leave some space for rocks. I love for Atlantic Ocean or any ocean, I do my phthalo green and phthalo blue. It makes a fabulous teal. You could go a little more of the green and more white, and you get more of that tropical Caribbean water too. So I am going to pop in, and I'm improvising because I don't have all my paints here, so I'm using my phthalo green and an ultramarine blue. But still, it gives you that nice deep Atlantic Ocean color. And I just want to get a horizon line across there. I'm going to add water to that so that I get a nice heavier solid line. Let me do it sideways so I get it straighter. You can certainly use a ruler. I'm just freehanding it, and I do actually have a ruler there. So let me see. If it doesn't come out straight, I'll get the ruler. I do have a ruler, and what I do is I kind of just thin the paint down, and I can just put the ruler. It's pretty straight, I think, anyway, but let's just see. I'm going to put the ruler across. And I'm going to just use my paintbrush right against it. Because the canvas, you know, the little white bits love to peek through, which actually on the water, if it peeks through, it kind of gives it a little sparkle. So I'm going to just go in and I'm going to start going back and forth. All my skies or grasses are different things. I usually always use that little crisscrossy stroke. But for water, I do go back and forth because the streaks will enhance what we're doing. Good morning, Teresa. That's what I try to do. I want you to not be afraid, and I want you to, if you have any interest at all in art and painting, I want you to jump in and give it a try because it doesn't have to be hard. It's like anything else. You can learn it. You can watch videos, and I try to teach step by step. Yes, some people are born with the talent, and they can draw, and they can do all the things, but if you want to enjoy it, and nothing says that you can't be an artist. I love to give people, if it's a more technical piece, I will give you a tracer. I will show you step by step how to go. So I'm going right back and forth here. And without doing anything, it's already looking a little ocean-like. Can't you see that, like that dark Atlantic Ocean? And then I just take a little white every now and then and just streak it across if I want a lighter area. And I can just, I'm using the same brush. I'm not washing it. I can go ahead with the dark and get the dark blue in again if I wanted to. If I want to go into the green and make it a little bit just more, you know, even make a nice I'm using my phthalo green and some yellow and get a nice kind of a green. We have that kind of green look in the ocean up here. Just work your way across and down. And again, you can go back and add some colors dry brushed across the top. But as I go, I want to get all these colors in. I might want a little teal in there. You don't know what they're going to look like till you try it. It's all an experiment for me, guys. Lots of times I'm just putting it on, and if I don't like it, it's acrylic paint. Wipe it off, paint over it. It's not something you have to live with. So just whatever colors you want to grab. I've done some green. I've done some teal there. If I go with some yellow, let's see what happens. Might just be even a brighter. Oh, it's a nice brighter. So I would just go along like that and get the ocean where you want it. Hey, George, Ellen, good morning. Patty, just getting up. Yeah, I was up early today. It gets real bright here, and so I was up. And good morning, Brenda. And I could just do this right around where I might have some rocks. So, and I can put rocks here coming in. The dark rocks will cover the paint, the lighter color. So I might leave some spaces for rocks, but I might just paint rocks over some too. So now I'm going to just go in back and forth, get my little areas of water here. This one doesn't really have any beach here, so we're going to go right down into rocks too. Sometimes I like to start pretty dark and then go a little light on top. So let's get some dark areas in there. And it's a little different experience with the heavy body paints. They're fun to play around with if you have not used them. I find Joann's still has good coupons. And there's a Liquitex set of small, I don't have them here, but they're small little tubes of heavy body paint. And it comes with like, I don't know, Charlotte, you have it. It's not 64 colors, but it's a lot of colors. Little tubes, and they're great to play with. And I just wait until like it's a 50 or 60% off coupon and buy the whole pack. So then you get all of the colors. If you want to try the heavy body paints, that's a good way to go. Otherwise, you can just get some very simple, basic colors. And again, with the palette knife and some text, you want to get a little texture in your paint. They're a fun way to do that. All right, so we're at 9:37. So we're not going to have time to paint the whole painting, but I'm going to be able to show you the sky and a little bit about water. If we don't get rocks in, I will still go ahead and do that with you. Maybe next time we could just continue on with this painting and do the rocks. So you can see I'm just streaking it back and forth. Just like the cloud, sometimes I just dip into the white and just give it a little go over. A nice way to get little waves and white caps is when the paint's dry, is just drag a little white over like we did with the clouds and you get that texture. So let's let that dry a minute. I'm going to go back in and show you some of the more of the clouds that I want to do in the sky there. So it's a little tiny bit damp, but it's pretty dry. I'm going to get some fresh white out. And we're going to brighten them up a little bit in just the little highlight areas. We'll put a little yellow. I even have a little purple scumbled in my sky there. I am going to go for a clean brush now. Clean white. I'm not going to paint over that whole cloud, but I will take my paint and I will hit it in little places that are a little brighter. And just thin as you need to because it's pretty thick. So maybe just like on the left-hand side, I'll just pop in some brighter white. Just kind of pop it in heavier. And I'm going to even show you how it would be fun to do it with the palette knife. So I just went into all my little clouds, little dabs here and there. Sometimes there's a cloud here and you have a little cloud in front. You don't have to even paint it except by putting some little highlights in it. Look like it appears there. Now with your palette knife, this is really fun. You can take your knife, scoop up your white, especially if it's thick, and you could do the same thing. You could just pat it on and get some nice textured bits there. You can even do that with the yellow. My yellow is kind of like a yellow ochre, which I don't have this morning, so we are going to take a yellow and a little orange. We're just going to mix it up to make it look, see if we can't get a little bit of more of a goldy yellow than full on. Yeah, there we go. Just something that's not bright. And I can do it right with the palette knife. I could just take and just pat it on here and there. If I want a little bit of, almost mix it with some of that white so it's not too heavy. I'll hold this up closer so you can see it too. So with the brush or with the palette knife, just kind of dab it in lightly using the texture of the canvas because I like the way, I'm not going to try to get real smooth. I like that look. as you can see. And if it looks like when I look at it, and I can always see my mistakes more in the video, looks like maybe it's too much of the yellow. So I'll just rinse my brush or grab a clean brush and add a little more white on top. Again, it's acrylic paint. You're not stuck with anything. You can adjust, go back and forth, paint layers on if you need to. I even put a tiny bit of purple in my sky there. See if I can take a little red and a little blue and get a little bit of a purple. I want it very light purple. And I can just do the same thing. I just kind of put a little bit in. That's looking a little gray actually, but a little bit of purple. I went in with a little teal. I went very colorful, more so with this little sky than I usually do, but you can see those other colors in there. So don't fear clouds. Have fun with them. Just even if you go with your mixed media paper and paint a little bit of a blue sky, throw the little whites in as you're laying in the base of the sky, and then just go in with your white paint to start and just, get these little shapes in. And let me see, I might go a little bit of a light teal on those clouds too. And if it doesn't work, you just, like I said, you don't worry about it. But I kind of like a little teal in the sky. I'm going to use kind of a blue-green in my water. You could have a very, very, very light sky with just barely any wispy clouds in it. Just have fun. Charlotte, I'm in Maine. Yes, I am. And so I didn't have much for my supplies when I realized I got here. So I'm using my gold and my heavy body acrylics today, which are fun because I do love the texture. So that could be it. That could be your clouds all done. I know we only have about 4 minutes. No, we don't. We have till 10. I started at 9:15, you guys. Oh, we'll have plenty of time. So another little example of how can you create when you have no time. You could sit down for 45 minutes and do a lot. And you don't have to finish, but if you just sit down and do it for a little while, you'll be surprised at how much easier it is to get back and do it again. And the more you keep doing that, the more you will want to, and the better you'll get. And just get over that initial mindset of, I just don't have time in my day. Even if it's 15 minutes, sit down and do a little sketch. Charlotte's a big sketcher. She knows what I'm talking about. So, right. So I started at 9:15. So we have more time. So good. All right. So let's leave those clouds for a bit. And let's go back to our water. And I'm going to get a little more in before I put my rocks, because I have a lot of white showing here. And I can paint rocks, like I said, right over that. So let's go back in here, because I know I had the water extend on my sample over here a little bit. And I'm going to have like little water around the little rocks here. So I'm just going to get that in there so some of that white of that canvas is covered. Again, it's just the blue and the green at the same time. And it can get very dark, which it's nice to have it dark in places. If you start really dark, I start a lot of my paintings very dark because it gives me room to lighten up and have all those sparkles and those light bits jump out at you afterwards. So I tend to go a little darker most of the time and work light. So I got a little more blue out. So I just grab a little of both. And I do want to get a little more dark in places here. And I'm always just using that back and forth stroke. And how many guys here are painters or new painters? I'd love to hear your stories. I know so many people love to paint, never really had time, never were encouraged maybe, and now have time maybe, and are jumping in and joining. So I love to see where you're at. I love to teach painting, and I love to see what everyone else is doing too. All right, so if I get a little of this yellow back with my green, I get that nice lime green color. And that's really pretty in the water here and there too. Like I said, I can go back to this and I'll add little white caps and things, but that's good for water. Let's figure out where we're going to put our rocks, and then we can always dab in some water in between. So I'm going to use this smaller brush. I'm going to get a little bit of burnt umber, which is a dark brown. I guess I didn't put it out yet. A little of that. I want it pretty dark in places, so if I have a Payne's Gray handy or a black, I am going to add that just to get a really dark brown black, almost black rock, and then it gives me a way to dab on the color, even with the palette knife, some lighter browns, some tans. I put a little of the lime green on top, so it's like the seaweed or on top of the rocks, and then a lot of little white dots that just look like the rocks are wet and glistening. So. Oh, Nancy, thank you. I guess that's just my way. I know sometimes I feel like I should be more up and excited and, get everybody excited, but then I always just kind of go back to this and, as like I can't stand listening to my voice. But anyway, if you guys, that's what I sound like. So anyways, in Tennessee, Janet, thank you. Yes, I love to paint. I've always painted. I have always painted. When I was about, whoops, there goes my plastic palette knife. I guess you had to be gentle with them. When I was about probably 10, I can't remember, very young, my brother and my mother sent us to oil painting lessons. I mean, it's so funny. And it was a little paint and wallpaper store, not even an art store, paint and wallpaper store downtown where I grew up in Hudson, Mass. And there was oil painting. The lady went in the back of the store and taught my brother and I to oil paint. So we'd go in with our little pictures ripped out of a magazine and we'd paint. And of course, my brother saves everything. So he's got his painting still. I do not. It was so fun. I love oil paints. I love everything about them. And I'm sure now you wouldn't be sending 9 and 10-year-olds to oil painting classes. But acrylics are easier, safer, water soluble, easy to clean up. So I do tend to teach mostly in acrylics. But I still love to oil paint, and I do a lot of plein air painting with my oils, although I have been experimenting with the water-based oils, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I've always loved to paint, and I love to teach people to painting. It's sort of back in the 80s, I taught decorative painting, and that was with oils though, and then started doing paint nights and teaching people how to paint, and then COVID hit, so I work a lot online now, really. And that gives me ability to teach people from all over the place, which is so cool. Oh, Kathy, you're very welcome. Like I said, I'm on my Tinker's Card art page, but I'm also on Craft Around the Clock, which is a fabulous, fabulous resource and a fabulous paint page. Sorry, the painting on the brain here. Hello from Minnesota. Let's see. I am going to take my black and my brown, and I'm going to always add blue. I'm not a big fan of just black, so I like to get something dark, but I always add my blue in there too. And I'm just going to kind of get an idea where these rocks are going to go. They're just going to be little, like back here, a few little rocks. I'm going to thin my paint so I can kind of get them in kind of where I want them, a little neater than being too rough, although they're rocks, so they can be. And on the coast here in Maine, we have a very rocky coast. I think I probably did this when I was down in Marginal Way in Ogunquit. It's kind of a fabulous little walk in Ogunquit, and it's all along the ocean, and I paint there a lot. I love it there. So I'm just sort of putting these shapes. They're sort of triangle shapes, so they're a little heavier here, and I'm kind of getting them a little thinner in. It sort of leads your eye around the painting. I could have this more little zigzaggy kind of a design, so your eye's brought in, and then you get a little rock here, and that brings you across. So I'm just laying in. I know you can kind of see, just roughly laying in. And when I'm painting from another painting or a sample, it's never going to be the same. So I don't want to hear, oh, I did that painting, but it didn't look like yours, because you know what? This is going to look nothing like mine originally either. So just have fun with it. When you start, follow along if you want. I love to give you all the tips, but I do not feel bad if you go rogue and do your own thing, because I encourage that. That's how you learn and develop your own style. So I'm kind of laying in a little bigger, more singular rocks down here because they're closer to us. So we'll make maybe a little bit bigger. I'm really straying from my sample, but. And this is like a whole little group outcropping of them. Let's see. Okay. And I'm going to just, like I said, I'm thinning it down just to get it laid on there. I'm going to go thicker when I put the highlights on. And I don't really even have to paint shadows on, because the dark we're starting with is the shadow. How I create form in all of my elements and the things that I paint is just lights and lights and darks, highlights and shadows. I create them different ways. Like this is going to be very dark to begin with, so I don't need to put a shadow so much. I may go back if I've lost the shadow. But then I'm going to just put highlights on top, starting from a darker shade to lighter. And when I put those little brights in the front of the really lime green. Those will really pop nicely. Or sometimes I'll do, not on this painting, but sometimes I'll do a wash of a light and dark. So people that paint with me a lot know my little techniques of getting lights and darks and shading in there. And you can use any, like I said, any size brush that you're comfortable with. This is a little big, but I'm going to go with it. And that would be good to start, just for our rocks to start. I vaguely put them in just as little darks, more triangularly shaped. I want to let that dry though, because I want to put my lighter colors on when that's dry so that it really shows up. If I'd had to go super light with my color now to get that to show where that dark paint is wet. So let's just let that sit a minute. And I'm going to show you on this one, you're going to see it's very different. And I'm going to try to tip it so the glare's not there. But can you see I took kind of just a light brown and hit it randomly closer to the tops. But in the front, I got these really nice little bright greens. And can you see these are all just little dots? You could make those little dots with a stylus. You could make those little dots with a toothpick or just with the tip of your brush even. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you guys all for watching. This is kind of a nice way for me to be able to see all your comments right here and for you to be able to see the painting up close. So I do like coming to you this way too. So now is the time you could take and look at your sky and say, oh, I need a little more yellow or a little more white or whatever you want to do. I'm leaving that as is. I can look here though now, and if I wanted to get some little white caps or highlights, sometimes I would go with either my flat brush and use the chisel edge, or you could use a little liner brush, any sort of little thin brush to get some nice little thin white lines. So I'm taking quite a bit of fresh water with a little white. So I'm going to mix up a really thin down white. I want it more like ink consistency than heavy paint. And with me using the heavy body paints and not the craft paints, it's going to take a little water and a little mixing. But I've just got a very thin bit of white. And sometimes I'll just go on and just paint little lines that are going to be kind of like little white caps. If I go up here, you can see it a little more maybe. And if you have a wave way back here, you don't have to go in and paint a big wave because your eye wouldn't see it. But if you just did a little line, maybe a little heavier, I poke in the brush down a little bit and then bring that line out. That reads from here as a wave out there, doesn't it? But look how simple. It's just a little thin line. So you just got to remember that the distance plays a part. Way back here, you wouldn't even need to do the little heavier part in the middle. You just sort of do a few lines. Sometimes I do it and I stop and start. It makes it look a little more sparkly. As I get closer, I might do the same thing, but a little heavier. And where this is not even the beach, if I was coming right up on the beach and I had a big wave turning, that's fun to paint. And we can do those someday too. But these are a little further out and it's just little, it's not as rough. It's kind of just the water sort of breaks along the rocks, which will make those little white sparkles kind of show as the paint's hitting, the waves hitting. Hey, Shelby. Not to worry. I do vary the times. It's just this one worked out with the moving. It's been kind of crazy for me, but you know I'm always recording it. And I do have a private group. I know you have my Facebook page, and you guys are welcome to follow me in all the places. But I also have a private community, which is nice. We have a community aspect to it. I put some classes and some quick tutorials up there, and that's over on Mighty Networks. And I believe there's a link in the description maybe, but I invite you to join me over there too. I am doing a little contest raffle to increase Pinterest followers because I'm going to kind of concentrate on Pinterest a little bit. So I'm going to make up a gift basket of all the art supplies that I love to use and some other things just to try. I have some books and different things where I'm moving and some of my paintings and some paints and brushes. And I'm raffling that off, I believe, on the 20th. So if you were to follow me over on Pinterest, just a follow is all you need to enter. I'm going to just take all of the followers there and put them into that drawing. So I'd love it if you popped over to Pinterest and just gave me a follow. It's Tinker's Cart Art, and I would appreciate that. And I also am going to be opening up my art membership again pretty soon. It's usually open kind of all along, but I like to do promotions every now and then. So it's going to, and I want to be able to just concentrate on the membership a little more and get it all, firmed up. We've been going for about 2 years now. There's 2 years of content over there. We do 4 things a month. A couple of paintings I record for you, what we paint one live, and then we have like kind of just a casual chat kind of a night, answer questions. I can demo things for you. And so I'm going to do is open up pretty soon for new members. I'm going to leave it open for the rest of the year, but it will be at a higher price because it's just a little more work to try to stop everything and get everybody onboarded. So I think I'm going to kind of go back to just getting everybody at one time. Then we are all coming in, the new members are coming in at the same time, and I can really guide them along a little easier than ones and twos, if that makes sense, as I ramble on. So anyways, I'm going to be doing that soon. So kind of watch for me on my socials there. Thank you, Donna, for following me. I appreciate that. Yeah, the rocks, just make them simple. Just don't think about it too much. Just make them simple. I'm going to kind of speed up a little because I know we only have 5 minutes. So little lines like this are here and there in your water, especially over the dark areas. So do put in more dark. I would maybe put more dark in because then when you put these little lines in, they really show up. Simple, simple, simple on rocks. Don't make too much out of them. Use your brush or use your palette knife. Palette knife is nice sometimes because it really gives you that texture of rocks. And I just want to mix up a lighter brown, like a tan that I'm going to use. So I'm taking a little bit of brown. I'm going to just get a light brown in there. Very simple, just white and burnt umber. I don't really need to thin this down. I don't believe. I'm going to try it like this. If it doesn't work, I can add water. But I want to almost have it glide across the top of the rocks with like kind of scraggly textured stroke. And that happens pretty much by itself if you are going with your palette knife. I'm going to go into the brown a little bit and kind of mix on my palette as I go so it's not all the same shade. It looks a little more natural that way. And just hit your rocks here and there. I'm going to go and do this again. I sometimes add a little orange in there, a little purple. I have colors I love, and when I do a painting, a lot of times I will think about my color palette. I want to add a little purple and maybe a little orange. Does it belong sometimes? No, but I put it in and I like the way it looks, but I carry it across. I might put that little purple in the clouds, throw a little bit of purple with my palette knife here and there. It just adds a little color and a little consistency if you don't go for every color in your box. Put out maybe 4 or 5 colors, maybe your favorites. And if you always use those colors, then that's going to really develop your style too. So I'm just with the palette knife or the brush, whatever you have, kind of get some highlights. Already it's looking, isn't it already looking like rocks without doing anything else? If you want, I sometimes, like I said, take a tiny bit of orange. And I might pop that in here, just a few little pops of color, not everywhere. Don't do everything consistency everywhere, just a little bit here and there. You could use your golds, you could use whatever you want. I particularly want to get right on the top of those. I'll use a round brush and get some of that lime green that looks like seaweed that's up on top of the rocks. I've just used my phthalo green and some yellow. You get a beautiful lime green. I'm going to plop that on a little heavy. And back here, I put it here and there, not too much. You don't see it as much. I might put it a little bit, very vague back here. But right up front here, I really want that to be bright. So it's on these rocks. And I'm going to, again, mix on the fly. So I've got the yellow and the green and not always the same way. And I'm going to get that on here. And I would be a little more careful probably because if we had more than 2 minutes left. So I'm going to mix some with the white and just hit it in a few places on top. And the best, most fun part of this painting is going back and getting those sparkles. So I would take that thin down white a little bit. Get a little white a little bit of white in front of these rocks. I'm just going to do a few because we're going to run out of time. And then I thin it down to get my little dots. Like I said, you could do it with the stylus if you wanted, or the tips of a brush. And you're just going to do a lot of these little sparkles. And I put them all over, and I love it when they put them all along the bottom of the rocks. Usually I might put a few, say I've got some of these little white lines, I'll put a few. And see how it's looking like it's a little sparkled. Now, if you want to, if it's a bigger canvas, if it's a big canvas, I would take my toothbrush and I would thin my white paint down. And I don't have much there, but you know, I have a minute left. We can do a little bit of it. So if it's a bigger painting, especially, and you wanted to take your paintbrush and really thin your white paint down, you could spatter on some of that spray. So just experiment. And you don't have to use all the materials that I say. but try it, get started with it, and then you go ahead and work how you would like to. So I will put a picture up so you can see the finished painting here and the one that I went by to begin with. So you can see, you know, not bad for 45 minutes, right? And you could do the little tiny mini canvases, which are fun, which come with the little easels. Oh, Cynthia, thank you. Thanks, Shelby. I appreciate the kind words, and I would love to help you on your painting journey too. So we're pretty much ready to wrap up. Please give a follow to Craft Around the Clock and stay tuned. We have, who's coming up next? Crafty Farmers. So it'll be a fun project there too. So I'll paint with you next time. I appreciate you popping in. I'll see you guys all soon. Thank you so much.